Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Soraya here. So today I have for you my current favorite MC romances. I have filmed this video like 4 times. I forgot to turn my mic on. I was sick in one of the videos and so I was coughing half of it. It is not good. So anyway, I'm going to try and get through this as quick as humanly possible and no pain. We shall see. Hopefully this will be the last time I film it and I won't have to do it again. So here we go. So the first book I'm going to talk about for you guys is Incandescent by River Savage, and this book is about Nyx and Cadence, and Nyx is the president of his MC, and he's kind of at this point where he just wants to find someone. He has lived a life where he's just not been discontent, but he's gotten to that point where he's discontent now. And he has a son, and he ends up getting a call from his son's school saying that his ex-wife is not answering and she hasn't shown up, and his son is at the school and he needs to get there. So he gets there and he ends up meeting the son's teacher, who is our other main character, our heroine, Cadence. And Cadence is a very straight-laced person. She is pretty much your average person, and she looks at Nyx and she sees all the bad things that people know about bikers. You know, the illegal, all you want to do is get in fights and hurt people and all these things. And throughout this story, Nyx is kind of showing her that, yeah, I may be this rough biker, but maybe that's just what you want or need. And it's one of those stories that I really enjoyed because it did take that biker stereotype, and although he's not like crazy out there biker, he also is just a dad, and he can be just a boyfriend, and you know, all those normal things that you forget about when all you see is a biker, a big guy, and a cut. You know what I mean? So I think that was probably my favorite part about this story, and it was an easy read and it was quick to get through, and I definitely want to go back and finish the series. So, alright, so the next book I have is New Snot Rose by Morata, and New Snot Rose is, it takes place over, well, I know in mine, it takes place over like 3 books. I don't even know if it's like that anymore, but when I put it in here, I'll like show it how it looks on my Kindle, because I got it forever ago and just didn't read it, and then I finally read it, and then, yeah. But anyway, so New Snot Rose is about a guy named Noose who was in the Navy, and once he got out, he decided he missed that brotherhood and he couldn't really handle civilian life, so he ended up joining the Roadkill MC, and he meets a woman named Rose, and Rose is not down on her luck, but she's very reserved. She hasn't led the most easy life. She lost her sister, and her sister ended up dying under, like, I guess you can say, like, mysterious circumstances, but she knows that her sister died because of her, I don't think he was her husband, I think like her boyfriend, but her boyfriend ended up being the president of an MC, and he was abusive, and they had a son named Charlie, and when her sister died, she ended up leaving Charlie to Rose, and so Rose now has a 5-year-old son. And when Rose meets Noose, she is very put off by him. She wants nothing to do with MCs or bikers because of what happened to her sister. But she realizes that she really needs Noose's help because Charlie's dad has now decided to come back for him. He feels like he's owed his son, he wants him back, and he's willing to take him by any means necessary. So News kind of looks at Rose and he tells her, okay, well, I get you're afraid of bikers, but I want to be here for you. I want to be here for your son, and I need you to let me in. And that's kind of what this story is about, her letting him in and letting him show her that not all bikers are what you've been shown. Not all bikers are these mean, abusive guys. Like, I'm a nice guy. I may not be like clean cut, clean collar kind of guy, but I am nice and I want to treat you nice. Nice? How many times can I say nice? He wants to treat her like his woman, his queen, whatever. So, yeah. Um, I really enjoyed that about Noose, that he was willing to be whatever she needed him to be and not necessarily trying to force himself on her. Like, yeah, he was persistent. Yeah, he wanted to be there for her, but he wasn't trying to like overstep and be over alpha. And I think that's something that you miss a lot in biker romances, and I really enjoyed having that here. Alright, next up is the Road to Royalty series by Autumn Jones Lake. Now, this, I guess you could say, this couple's story takes place over 3 books, 3.5 books, something like that. Um, and as you'll probably figure out with all of these books that I'm talking about, when I got them, they were in box sets, because usually if I'm like scrolling on like Amazon or something, I am looking like for what's cheap, um, buy and read, uh, because I just want to try something new and different or whatever. So usually I'll buy them in like box sets and like breeze through all the books. So I think the first book is like Corrupting Cinderella, I think is what the first actual book of this series is called. So I'm telling you the name of the series, but I think the first actual book is called, I believe it actually is called Corrupting Cinderella. I just don't remember for sure. And basically this is about Rock, or Rockland, and Hope. Now, Hope is your typical lawyer. She is very straight laced. She is all about the law and staying within this black and white of what she's always known. And she ends up meeting Rock one day when she's in court finishing a case, and the judge asks her to stand in for his lawyer who is late and doesn't show up. And it's basically just a like a not a sentencing, but like where he gets told his, well, yeah, I guess it would be a sentence thing, where he just gets told his penalty for breaking the law or whatever he did and gets released. And so she ends up stepping in for him, and he ends up enamored with her, and he ends up really liking her, but she quickly kind of like rebuffs him because she's married. Now, I know, hold on, there's no cheating in here before you get to like red flags here. Basically what ends up happening is Hope Hope ends up telling him that she has a husband, and he backs off immediately and is just like, oh, okay. But he keeps an eye on her after that, which I guess now thinking back is kind of stalkerish. But anyway, so he keeps an eye on her, and about a year later, her husband ends up dying in a work accident. And after he dies, Hope kind of falls into this really bad depression, and she she mainly feels that way because she felt like it was her fault, and she was very guilty when her husband died because she did end up liking Rock, and she felt like if she hadn't had those feelings, then maybe something wouldn't have happened to her husband, and which obviously is not really realistic, but it's just how she felt, and I can understand that with like survivor's guilt and all that kind of thing. So anyway, she, like I said, falls into this deep depression, and Rock ends up kind of bringing her out of that. He ends up setting it up with her best friend that they'll meet up again, and he's never forgotten her. It's like 2 years by the time they meet up again, and the relationship takes off from there. And the main focus of their story is her figuring out whether her lines, her black and white world as a lawyer, can fit into his very gray world. Because he's not a bad guy, but he is a biker, and he is outside of the legal lines. He is an outlaw, a one percenter. He doesn't necessarily follow the law, he follows his law. So she has to say to herself, is that something she can live in and still be a lawyer? In her right conscience, which is interesting to me because you never think, well, people don't always follow like the law or something, like little things like you speed or you like, I don't know, don't pay your tickets or something like that. And it's like little things, but like you don't think about it in your mind like, hey, if my friend is a cop or if my sister's a lawyer or something like that, and they end up having to defend us, what would they do? And I just thought that was a really different perspective, because here she is and it's like, my boyfriend is doing things outside of the law, but I'm a lawyer and I've taken an oath to uphold the law, so what do I do? And I've never really thought about that in my mind, but to read about it I found very fascinating and interesting. So yeah, and it was also very easy. It was funny. I found myself laughing a lot with their banter because it was very good. And I liked all the side characters. I liked Trin, I liked Wrath, um, and I just liked all the different biker guys in the MC. It was just really fun time. So the next book I'm going to talk about is Laurent and the Beast by K.A. American. Now, if you watched any of my videos, like any of the past couple ones I put out, you will know this has quickly become one of my favorite books ever. So Laurent and the Beast, I'm just going to give you a brief synopsis. It's about Laurent, who is a guy from the 1800s, and he has always felt like he's needed to hide his sexuality because being gay in that time is not really something you can do. It's very frowned upon. So he thinks he's found this man who feels the same way he does, has the same feelings, and he goes over to this man's house. He finds out that this man is not what he seems, and he ends up killing this man who attacked him and has been killing men around his town, village, whatever. So when he kills this man, a demon appears, and the demon offers him a chance to go somewhere where he doesn't have to hide who he is or who he wants to be with. And in exchange, the demon asks for two things. He asks for him to keep a man named King, the president, which Laurent really doesn't know what that is, but he agrees. The second thing the demon asks for is for Laurent to keep a man named Beast alive until his 33rd birthday. Now, Laurent doesn't know anything about this, but he agrees because he's super excited that he'll get to live the life that he's always felt like he deserved and should have been living. So he wakes up and he is in one of the rooms of an MC clubhouse, and a man is standing over him and he's covered in blood. Laurent is, not the man, by the way. And it is now 2017. So the man who ends up finding him is named Beast. And Beast is a very wounded hero. He has lived his life pretty much being abused, not so much physically, but mentally by his father, King, who's the president of their MC. And he ended up being badly scarred when he was 20, I believe, in an accident. And half his body is now burned, so he doesn't believe anyone will love him or care about him. And to top it off, to cover up all his scars, because he didn't want people to pity him, he covered it with tattoos. So now people are more afraid of him than anything else. And he doesn't want anyone or anything, or he acts like he doesn't want anyone or anything. But as him and Laurent spend more time together, he realizes that that's kind of all he wants, is someone to really love him and appreciate him for who he is and not necessarily what he looks like. This story, it touched my heart. I loved it so much, and I couldn't put it down, or I couldn't stop listening to it because I listened to it on audiobook. But it was so good. It was so good, and it quickly, very easily became one of my favorite books that I read this year, and I just love it, and I can't stop talking about it because I loved it so much. So the next book I'm going to talk about is one I know I've also mentioned on here before, which is Welcome to the Dark Side by Gianna Darling. And this is probably one of my favorites. It's kind of a tie between this one and the next one I'm going to talk about, but it's either my favorite or my second favorite. I can't decide between the two MC romances that I've ever read, and I've read it multiple times. And I just can't. I cry every time I read it. So this story is about Zeus and Lou, and they end up meeting by accident, basically, when there's a shootout in front of Lou's family church, and she ends up running into Zeus's arms, and in the process, they both end up getting shot. And over the next course of a couple years, they are writing to each other because Lou ends up telling Zeus that she has cancer, and he ends up going to prison for the shootout. And over that time, while they're writing to each other, they're kind of expressing how they feel about their life and her fears about having cancer, whether or not she thinks she'll survive, if she'll survive. It's interesting. And he just talks about his life, his kids, and it's very innocent, so I don't want this to seem like groomy or pedophile-y or anything like that. And as time goes on, he gets out of prison, her cancer goes away, and they become friends, and they continue to write to each other. Well, flash forward, I think, I want to say 6 or 7 years, they were writing to each other. When she turns 16, in one of her letters, she seems to, express that she has feelings for him, and he kind of backtracks a little bit there and cuts off their relationship. So, you flash forward a year, and they end up meeting up again at a party where he shows up to one of her friend's parties, and she is blackout drunk. He takes her home, and their relationship kind of restarts from there. And it's very interesting because she is definitely not your typical 17-year-old girl. And I think that has a lot to do with her having cancer. She's kind of been forced to grow up and think about all these things that adults usually think about. And that, of course, this also has to do with the fact that her parents aren't always there. They're very neglectful. And then Zeus is very reluctant to start a relationship with her because He doesn't feel like she's old enough. He doesn't feel like it's appropriate for them, which I think is also what makes it such a good story. So he's very reluctant to agree to what she wants, which is to be with him. And through this story, is quite long. I think it's like 500 odd pages. I'm looking up there at it. It's quite thick. So here's the cover, if you were wondering. And I think not even 500, 454 pages. No, 439 pages. If you get the one with the bonus epilogue. If you don't, it's 436 pages. So it's not too bad. I'll hold that up now since I already have it. But it is definitely one of my favorites. They both grow throughout this book, not only like obviously physically because they're aging, but mentally, intellectually. They both grow and kind of realize that you have to keep an open mind, because what you think or what may seem like society's way of thinking is not necessarily the truth. Just because she's young doesn't mean she isn't wiser than your average 17-year-old. Just because he's older doesn't mean he's more mature than your average 17-year-old horn dog boy. But they kind of counterbalance each other, and you kind of realize that where one falters, the other one works, and it's kind of like a kismet story, like it was meant to be, and I really like that. So like it was kind of like these two people who were from different times, and they met at the perfect time, and their lives kind of crossed at the perfect time, and they were meant to be together. And that's what I really feel about this story, and that's why it's one of my favorites. Okay, so we did it. We've gotten to the last book, and this story is one where I'm going to start ahead of time with all the triggers, because there are a few. There's quite a few. So obviously both of these last two stories are going to have age gaps. Like I said, this one, she is 17 when they get together, and he's 34, I want to say. I believe he's like twice her age. Or no, he's 19 years older, so he's 36. So there is that. But in this one I'm talking about now, it's not as big of an age gap. So when they first meet, she is 9 and he is 17 or 18. And also trigger warnings for 9/11, because that's also in here in detail. And I don't really like that in my stories, but this one does it very well, and it wasn't like one of those unnecessary things. I felt like it played a good role in it, and I don't like having sad things in there just to pull out emotions, and I feel like this one was done very well. So there is that. There's loss of a child, miscarriage, loss of a loved one. I'm trying to think. I think that might be it for now. Can't think of any other ones. If I miss any, I'm sorry. Check on Goodreads. I don't even think Goodreads tells you, but check anyway. Read the reviews, because there is a lot of sad stuff that happens in here. But okay, so yeah, I just want to let you know, and I know some people don't like this might be spoilers, but I feel like if you're going into a story and I'm recommending you a story, then I should tell you what you're getting into, because I don't want to just lead you into that blind. So there is that. Anyway, so the last story I'm going to recommend to you is It's The Road to Nowhere by M. Robinson. So this book, it's so hard to describe this. The story takes place over 2 books, and it's about Creed and Mia and kind of their growth together as well as apart, if that makes sense. So the way I like to explain it is that the first book is very much about Mia's wrong. The first book is very much about Creed's growth and him growing into the man he is at the end of the book. So the first book is very much about Creed and his growth and like who he ends up being at the end of all this. And the second book is more so about Mia and her growth and who she ends up becoming. And I know that sounds very like odd, but it makes sense. So in the first book you mainly get Creed's perspective, and he ends up going through a lot. So Creed is this guy who has grown up in the MC life. His dad is the president, and that's pretty much all he knows. His dad has never been the kindest father, or any kind of father for that matter, and so Creed has always had to look out for himself and his brothers. And his mom has always been super sensitive, I guess you will call her. It's not that she didn't love her kids, it's just life kind of got in the way for her, and she kind of fell astray for a bit. So in this story, like I said, Creed ends up meeting Mia when she's 9. He shows up at her parents' restaurant because his best friend, who is her oldest brother, is there. Well, he's meeting him, and they end up hitting it off, and she quickly decides he's going to be her friend whether he wants to or not. And they, from then on, kind of constantly gravitate towards each other, and it ends up being like not a will they end up together, but a when will they end up together. And I just love this story. Like I said, Mia is the only daughter to her father. She ends up living a very sheltered life, and she ends up being like obsessed with Creed and enamored by him because he doesn't necessarily baby her. He doesn't try to box her into like this role of being this innocent girl, because yeah, she isn't like super bad and awful, but she's not super sassy, or well, she is sassy. I'm not gonna say that that's wrong, but she's not super out there crazy. She's not like that either. She just wants to live her life, and he doesn't try to control that in any way. Now, I don't think this story will be for everyone because Creed is definitely very alpha. He is who he is, and he doesn't really plan on changing. And I don't think a lot of people are gonna like that. And I will say that I think the second story, or the second part of their story, is gonna frustrate a lot of people because it kind of destroys a lot of the story from the first book without giving like too much away. So there is that. But I do think that it's something that's worth reading because of the enjoyment that I got out of it, and it was something that I had kind of went back and forth on whether I even wanted to put it on this list, because not that it's not one of my favorite books, but because I do think it's going to be very clear cut divided between people who like it and people who don't like it. And I will say she is underage when her and Creed get together, and there's like a 9-year age difference between them. So there's that, and a lot of people might not like that because when they finally get together, she is 16 and he's 25, I think, or 27, or no, he's 25 or 26 and she's 16, something like that. But so I don't think everyone is gonna love this story, but it is one I really enjoyed, and so I felt like it needed to be on here. And yeah, that's it. Alright guys, this has been a thing. Like I said, this is my 4th time filming this video, and I am tired of doing it, so I'm hoping this comes out just all well. I will put in like all the juju here, so I hope it comes out very well. But yeah, if it does, you will be seeing it. If not, you won't. I don't even know if I will refilm this again if it doesn't work out this time, so there is that. But yeah, so that's it. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe if you wanna, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye guys.